This so-called plot against the Michigan governor is so sketchy. It's so sketchy that it almost seems like it's been scripted from beginning to end. And it never fails, the mainstream media is doing their part to the fullest extent. But that's where independent journalists and media comes in, to separate the facts from the defamation articles, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Because they only have a one-sided narrative to every story. On this video, we're going to go through the other side, and I'm going to bring out a lot of points that you're never going to hear on the mainstream. So let's get into it. You guys are watching Talks with Ryan. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and let's get into today's video.
The alleged plot nightmarish.
Earlier today, Attorney General Dana Nessel was joined by officials from the Department of Justice and the FBI to announce state and federal charges against 13 members of 2 militia groups who were preparing to kidnap and possibly kill me.
The governor comes out and sets her stage to let the whole audience know that militias are bad and very dangerous. She has set the table.
The FBI and state police seen here raiding a home and detaining an individual took action after the men met this week to exchange tactical gear and to pool their money to allegedly buy explosives.
From a legal standpoint, none of that is illegal, depending on what kind of explosives. But still yet, trading tactical gear, trading guns, whatever, getting together in a group is not illegal. So what?
The mission? Attack the governor before Election Day. Authorities claim the planning was months in the making, with the men even going to the governor's vacation home twice to conduct surveillance.
See, this is the reason I covered this video. The way the media is portraying this so-called group or militia, when they give their explanation, it sounds no different than the government. If you didn't name these men or say that there was these men, you could not tell this story apart from a story about the government or a story about a so-called militia. There's no difference. The government is the masters of surveilling people. They do it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. I mean, it's common sense, guys. But since these guys do it, they're criminals.
2 of the suspects allegedly had a plan to create a diversion.
Discussed detonating explosive devices to divert police from the area of the home.
Now, I should have made this clear at the beginning of the video, but I do not condone any acts of violence. There's no use in somebody saying that they don't like the government, and then they're going to turn around and act just like the government. If this story is true, and I say that because it's completely antithetical to their whole cause. If they stand for the Constitution and they are against the government and their tyrannical ways, then why in the world would any of these guys be spotted at a BLM rally where they're supporting Black Lives Matter and a communist Marxist group? It don't make sense. And guys, get this. This article reads, the man that was at the BLM rally was 23-year-old Daniel Harris. He was at the rally in June, and it says that he told Oakland County Times that he was upset about the killing of George and police violence. What a very short, vague description of what he's got a problem with. And if anybody, has any authenticity about the way they feel when it comes to the Constitution or being a moralist or just being an all-around good person, when it comes back to this one police violence scenario, most people by now have put a bead on this whole case and, the story behind it. And we all know how we feel as each other, you know what I mean? Therefore, this guy is either a part of BLM or Antifa or something like that, because truthfully, from my point of view, and I guarantee most of you guys are thinking the exact same thing on this, he's not a member of the truth, freedom, and liberty and moralistic group. He's just not, because that's not how these people think. Now, I'm not claiming that I know how every single person thinks, but I'm saying if you base your decisions and your way of life off morals and truth and honesty, and you're trying to do the right thing and point out the truth and the factual hypocrisy and stuff like that, then I would almost guarantee and bet money on it that you're not going to go out and turn around and treat a bunch of people exactly the way the government treats everybody else.
According to the FBI, the men were apparently angry because of Governor Whitmer's restrictions during the coronavirus pandemic, including those on gyms. Tensions have been high in Michigan for weeks, with militia members, some of them armed, at one point descending on the State House last spring, intimidating lawmakers.
And yeah, we're 3 minutes in and they're still at it. So if they are criminals or such bad people for intimidating lawmakers as a militia, then what about these guys? 400 people strong, every one of them armed. And have you guys heard some of the rhetoric that comes out of this Grandmaster Jay's mouth online? I mean, where's the federal lawsuit and the criminal charges on this guy and all of his buddies? You know, what's the big deal? What's the difference? See what I mean? It's about the narrative. It's not about the problem.
To law enforcement, if you really want to have the worst day in U.S. history, if you really want to see what it's like to all that shit you carry, what it's like when they know how to shoot back, if you really want it like that, we're going to bring it to you. You see, the city of Minneapolis, you got one chance to fix this shit. Because when we show the fuck up, it's going to be the worst thing. Don't call your National Guard out. We got something for them. You call me and say, Jay, I done went back to school and scooped these niggas' kids up. What you want me to do with them? If you got the mayor tied up with duct tape and a rope in the back of your SUV and say, Jay, I got this nigga, what you want to do with it? Then you call me. So if you join us and we find out that you working for the other side, we going to kill you. We gonna kill you. Straight the fuck up. If I can threaten and I don't make threats.
I can threaten and I don't make threats.
We gonna kill you.
Well, after that well-needed laugh, let's get into the article. The investigation dates to early 2020 when the FBI learned through social media that the individuals were discussing the violent overthrow of several state governments and law enforcement. In June, Croft, Fox, and 13 and others from multiple states held a meeting in Dublin, Ohio. Several members talked about murdering tyrants or taking a sitting governor, and the FBI agent wrote in an affidavit unsealed on Thursday. The group decided they needed to increase their numbers and encourage each other to talk to their neighbors and spread the message. Don't be talking to your neighbors, guys. For God's sakes, whatever you do, do not get together with your neighbors and form little neat groups, because apparently, according to the FBI, that is now illegal in America. Let's skip down to the highlighted area. They discussed different ways of achieving this goal, from peaceful endeavors to violent actions. At one point, several members talked about state governments they believed were violating the U.S. Constitution. Well, yeah, a lot of them are, including the government of Michigan and Governor Gretchen Whitmer, which, if you guys remember, she just got a verdict from a Supreme Court that basically shut her down. She wanted to extend this lockdown. They said no. They said it's unconstitutional, just like Pennsylvania governor. They told him to, unconstitutional, can't do it. And her law she was trying to pull off, like I covered this in another video, the law she was trying to use is like 100 years out of date, and it's been redone and updated and revamped. So basically, she was trying to lie to the people to extend this lockdown that's based off nothing. Looks like I skipped a line. In the middle there, it says the group talked about creating a society that followed the U.S. Bill of Rights and where they could be self-sufficient, which is what they need to be. The FBI wrote, according to the paper. Now, they act like this is such a bad thing, but government's job and government was never put in place to control the people. The Second Amendment states a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The reason for the Second Amendment was originally created to give the citizens the opportunity to fight back against a tyrannical government. I mean, according to legal paperwork and all of our documents that this whole country has been founded off of ever since we started, these men seem like they're following the Constitution, whereas the one who is playing the victim is not. But the so-called constitutionalist militia is the bad guys, of course. And one last thing before we move on to see what the sheriff has to say about it. Where is the proof? We've heard this is from the FBI or from the government. We've heard it from the media, but we've still yet to see any documentation. We've not heard any recordings. We've not seen any evidence whatsoever except for what's come out of this governor's mouth. And as far as I'm concerned, everything she's basically put out during this lockdown has been something that is either a flat out lie or it's some type of deception. She's deceiving the people. So therefore, I don't believe it. I don't believe her. I don't believe what the government tells me. I feel like I always have to ask questions, regardless. Even if it seems like it makes sense, I still got to go back and double check. Now, this guy pictured on the screen, the police officer, he's the sheriff, D. Leaf. And they're trying to pull him over to the media side, the more government side. But I believe he's looking at this pretty fair, and he can see what's going on through his investigative work, I guess he's done in the past, or he just knows how the government and media is. But check out what he has to say.
Home order held last May in Grand Rapids. You can see William Null on stage alongside Barry County Sheriff Dar Leaf, a guest speaker at the event. We spoke with Sheriff Leaf Thursday night.
Well, I haven't read everything up on it. I've got other duties to do. It wasn't our investigation. So I was shocked. I did not see this coming with those guys, but still, we can't convict them in the news media here. They do have a right to a fair trial.
He's absolutely right. This whole thing's getting blown out of proportion. Like I said, there's no evidence. These guys are innocent until proven guilty. And don't get me wrong, I'm not taking these guys' side. They may be a crazy bunch. I don't know. But that's not for the governor to decide. That's not for CNN to decide. That's for the courts to decide based upon factual evidence and, circumstances and notes and recordings. And I mean, if the proof is there, there's not a whole lot they can do about it. But until then, I mean, you just got to wait it out, basically. There's no short way around that.
Leaf says he doesn't know of Null's alleged involvement in the plot and doesn't have any regrets about sharing a stage with him.
Do you have any regrets from being on stage, sharing a stage with a guy who's now being charged in a plot to kidnap the governor?
Well, it's just a charge, and they say a plot to kidnap. And you got to remember that, are they trying to kidnap? Because a lot of people are angry with the governor.
Now, I'm not a big fan of cops, but you got to give credit where credit's due. This guy is speaking the truth. He's being honest about the situation because he knows how horrible the media can twist the story around. And these guys have basically been proven guilty before they've seen their first second in a courtroom. Now, he knows good and well also that not just these guys, they're not just the select few and like everybody else is so happy. The whole state is ticked off at this governor. I mean, a good majority of the people are very upset with the governor. There's a lot of people mad. I mean, imagine how many people's lost their homes, their businesses, their retirements have basically been drained down to nothing. And, they lost their livelihoods. Their kids are upset. There's depression. There's so many things on the table, and she's wanting to extend this, and the numbers have been, increasingly going down day after day after day. But still yet she wants to continue the lockdown, and she would even go as far as to lie to the people of the state to try and do so. But pay attention to what he said there at the very last.
The guy who's now being charged in a plot to kidnap the governor?
Well, it's just a charge. And they say a plot to kidnap. And you got to remember that, are they trying to kidnap? Because a lot of people are angry with the governor.
Because he's insinuating that maybe they wasn't trying. Maybe he's not going to go with the mainstream narrative. And maybe they wasn't trying to kidnap her. Maybe they was actually going for an arrest. a citizen-based arrest.
And they want her arrested. So are they trying to arrest, or was it a kidnap attempt? Because you can still, in Michigan, if it's a felony, you can make a felony arrest. And I think it's MCL 764.4 or something like that, 0.5, somewhere on there.
Now, I'm more on the side of this sheriff than I am the mainstream media or the governor, because him, like a lot of us, studied these certain laws of these states, so we don't go into stuff blindly. But he quoted it. It was section 764.4 of Michigan Code. And it states that taking a person arrested pursuant to a warrant before a magistrate of judicial circuit in which an arrest is made under the conditions that, basically it goes in to say that if a public servant or anybody is taken by, I guess, a civilian in this case, and they are taken into custody for a felony and put in front of the magistrate, they can be charged. And, that could very well be what their plan was to do. And instead of letting the justice system work its wonders, they decided to call them terrorists and make them out to be a bunch of criminals. And now it's all just going to blow over, get swept under the rug.
And it doesn't say if you're an elected office that you're exempt from that arrest. So I have to look at it from that angle, and I'm hoping that's more what it is. In fact, these guys are innocent until proven guilty, so I'm not even sure if they had any part in it.
The FBI infiltrated and wiretapped one of the groups after getting a tip that the men were allegedly plotting against police and planning to attack the state capitol in an attempt to overthrow the government.
All right, guys, this part and the next part, pay close attention, because this is proof 110% that the government feels like they have a higher claim over your life and your property than you do yourself. They feel like they can surveil you, but if you try to surveil them, even if they're the ones committing the crime, you are still the criminal. Check this out.
The men even going to the governor's vacation home twice to conduct surveillance. With an informant listening in, they call Whitmer a tyrant. One of the suspects saying snatch and grab the governor. Just grab the expletive. They allegedly wanted to take her to a secret location in Wisconsin for a trial that would end in execution.
Allegedly. Now that last part, they was saying that the guys were surveilling her and then turned around and said through a wiretap, the government picked up their conversation. So the listener is sitting at home and thinking, these guys are criminals because they were spying on the governor. But then at the same time, 2 seconds later, the government says they were spying on these guys and nobody thinks nothing's wrong with it. I mean, that is a psychological operation, regardless of what you think or what you've been told. If you feel like it's okay for the government to do surveillance on us or you, but it's not okay for the people to stand back and do surveillance on the government, then you feel like basically you're saying that the government has a higher claim over your life and your property than you do yourself. Now, this next part we're going into is going to be the final part, but I want you guys to see this picture that they're painting of this so-called militia and basically the hypocrisy and the lies behind all of it. I'm going to point it out to you.
In Michigan can disagree about politics, but those disagreements should never, ever amount to violence.
David, the investigation is ongoing and there could be more charges. It's not quite over.
Here, you just reported here weeks ago on this broadcast that the FBI Director Christopher Wray had warned of this very kind of threat.
Yeah, David, there are a variety of people and groups with grievances, some of them radicalizing online and some of them getting together to share their frustrations. They range from white supremacists to anti-government radicals from the left and the right, some of them even anarchists, kind of a witch's brew. The FBI has a difficult job of trying to figure out when they go from radical speech to something potentially violent.
13 suspects arrested, including 7 alleged members of a right-wing militia group. The FBI and state authorities conducting a series of raids in Michigan. Those 13 suspects taken into custody, 7 of them alleged members of that right-wing militia group.
So without any proof, just word of mouth, these guys have turned into a right-wing militia group. They've been radicalized. They're domestic terrorists. And this guy right here is one of the guys Now tell me if he belongs to a right-wing militia group.
Trump is not your friend, dude. And it amazes me that people actually believe that when he's shown over and over and over again that he's a tyrant. Every single person that works for government is your enemy, dude.
Alleged members of that right-wing militia group.
Governor Whitmer has been the target of protests since last spring over restrictions aimed to stop the spread of COVID amid one of the early outbreaks. Today, Governor Whitmer thanking authorities for protecting her and her family, but went on to talk about white supremacists in this country. And the president, who she pointed out was asked to condemn white supremacists on that debate stage. You'll remember the president saying, "Stand back and stand by."
Just last week, the President of the United States stood before the American people and refused to condemn white supremacists and hate groups like these two Michigan militia groups.
Now, you remember the government policy, right? Never let a good crisis go to waste. So there's threats on her life and a plot to kidnap her, but she's still going to use her stage time to bash Trump. Good call. So what do you guys really think? Is this thing 100% legit? Is it just another round of psyops for mainstream media? Is this some kind of retaliation against the people because the governor got shut down with her attempt to lock down the state for a little bit longer? Or is this some kind of diversion to divert attention away from the governor and some type of criminal action that she's basically trying to sweep under the rug, and her only out is to make these guys look like criminals and play the victim? You guys let me know what you think in the comments section below. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And other than that, guys, take everything in life with a grain of salt. And don't trust nothing until you can figure it out for yourself 110%. And other than that, guys, take it easy. And I will see you guys in the next video.